Now I know, there's only a few days left until Edge of Fate, but even on the cusp of the new expansion, Bungie is still delivering some insight into what's changing in both Edge of Fate and Renegades, and even beyond that. Milo, aka Raffle Waffles, spent an hour talking with Robbie Stevens, and CB Gray spent 30 minutes with Tyson Green. And I urge you, if you really want to see these folks speak for themselves, we have their links down below, which will take you directly to their videos, as the video that we're going to be bringing you today is just going to be a summary of the important topics of conversation. And this is going to range from epic raids to feats to weapon crafting, the new player experience, the future of exotics, and even the planned vault update. Now, forewarning, a lot of these subjects Bungie is keeping close to the chest, so some of the answers will be vague, but it does give us a general idea of the direction Bungie is moving in. So without further ado, let's dive in. So let's kick things off with a question from Milo. Are there any changes planned for the new line experience? Robbie explained one of the big changes in Edge of Fate is the reduced announcements and auto-launch seasonal missions. The team has done a massive cleanup pass across all new player announcements and have a more robust process for how they get input into the live game. In the future, they also plan to implement other messaging tools besides just the pop-up screen. We were literally talking about this the other day on stream. Like, imagine a world in which you can view the TWAB/TWID in-game. Granted, that's a lot of text, but it'd be kind of cool to just walk up to like this billboard at the tower and view the most recent TWID. Now, auto-launching missions will no longer take place for seasonal content. For example, when Ash and Iron comes out, you'll need to go to the quick launch screen in the portal to access that content. However, the expansion will still launch you into the first mission, since a great majority of players are looking to enter that content first. Now, CB Gray asks, what steps are being taken to ensure that new players are not being overwhelmed? Game Director Tyson Green believes a big part of what is overwhelming about Destiny is all of the different objectives, quests, bounties, weekly challenges, seasonal challenges, triumphs, seals, guardian ranks, etc. It's so many different things, and they are on so many different screens. The portal is the first step in that direction, giving players a single space where every activity is worthwhile for meaningful rewards. In subsequent releases, this process of objective consolidation will be fleshed out further. Bungie is also looking into reworking the new line experience. The problem with new lights is it's a ramp up into a game that is fundamentally too complex, which makes the ramp itself too complex as well. First, the end state needs to be reworked in order to build a better ramp. No lie, that makes so much sense. I know we sit here and we're like, yo, we need the new light experience to be better, but essentially what he's saying with that is that we need to fix the core first, the end game first, and then bring those core system changes into the ramp up process. That way you don't have a new light player having to learn a version of the game that won't exist. Now, CB Gray asks, how are destinations being kept in the gameplay loop post the completion of the campaign? Now, per Tyson Green here, part of the answer is offering higher tiers of destination gear available in harder difficulties. At the same time, the goal shouldn't be to make a destination so integral that you're forced to keep playing it even after new content has arrived. The option should always be available for players to return and grind for armor or higher tier weapons that they want. But when a new destination arrives, they shouldn't be required to stay. Keep in mind what Bungie is doing in Kepler will be different from Renegades and also different from Shattered Cycle in the future, and that this is an opportunity for the team to experiment. Now, moving on to the next topic, the new gear system. This system will mark new weapons and armor along with a few specific existing items so that they are easily identifiable. They'll also drop with seasonal bonus power and receive bonuses from the artifacts such as a 10% bonus for weapon damage and a 15% bonus for damage resistance when using all new gear. Now, Milo asks, the recent new gear bonuses have been somewhat controversial. What is Bungie's intention behind the new gear? Assistant Game Director Robbie confirmed part of the intention was for new players to know what gear they should be using. Are the bonuses strong enough that using old gear feels like a disadvantage? In their playtesting and feedback, the answer was no. They want you to keep using the gear that you love, even if it's not within this new featured system. Now, from what they've seen internally, these bonuses have the greatest impact with players who aren't great at build crafting and optimization. Now, Robbie went on to say it's not really until the super high-end content beyond Master where these bonuses could really start mattering more in terms of optimization. However, there is a big difference between internal playtests and the live game, so you need to see how it plays out. Now, Milo suggested a solution to the new gear bonus debate could be some sort of modifier only active by default in lower rated activities that you can turn off for better loot. It still benefits new players, but won't affect in-game players who are concerned about tighter build crafting restrictions. Now, the new gear bonus lasts for 6 months, that being until Renegades, and the major update, Ash and Iron, will add more new gear to the featured pool. Now, Tyson Green also made it very clear in this interview that the new system is designed to make clear what is actually new. It'll give it places to shine, that is the new Crucible game mode cutting edge, but he did say that it is possible that the tuning right now is too hot, which Bungie will revisit. But quote, a God Roll adept from a previous season is probably going to be better than new gear, at least for the first several tiers, if not all the way up. There are built-in advantages to the older gear that are impossible to top. And we've talked about this before, guys. At the end of the day, a God Roll is a God Roll, and unless there's another weapon that outright has a better roll than it within that same archetype, or just new trait combinations, you're still going to use Aberrant Action. I'm still going to use Psycho Pop, Lull Signal, my Chroma Rush with Kinetic Tremors. I'm still going to be using that. But if another weapon comes out, like Chroma Rush, and has Kinetic Tremors, it's a rapid fire, and it so happens to have a better origin trait, well, hell, there you go. Now, CB asks, how are you balancing the new tier system? Where does crafting live in Edge of Fate? The answer here is that Bungie wants to create an aspirational loot pool across a broad range of activity types that are more challenging. Prior to gear tiering, there was Adepts, Artifice, Time Loss, etc. And instead of just making Adepts for every activity type, Bungie first needed a way to scale difficulty across the game, so they can scale all the possible rewards as well. Now, Adept level rewards are available across the game, including PvP. Crafting is now positioned as a catch-up mechanic for anything players may have missed. In addition, crafting helps alleviate the vault problem experience players are facing. The vault fix is not ready for Edge of Fates because there are a lot of moving parts, but it is a work in progress. Now, CB says, what is the purpose of featured exotics and how are exotics changing in Edge of Fates? If you guys remember a few twaps back, Bungie is going to have this list of featured exotics that are essentially going to be, well, a bit more potent. From Tyson Green here, the featured exotic list is another step of focusing the meta for a season and for new players. These should serve as a guide to what to obtain first. The focus for Edge of Fates has been to get the legendary economy in order, so exotics aren't changing. Some people are concerned about the stat distribution on exotics in Edge of Fates, and Bungie is aware of this issue, but they're looking into how to either bring exotics into the tiering paradigm or, and this is a direct quote, what is the right place to set their budgets? And how do we let players reforge them, recustomize them, or reconfigure them to mesh into this new paradigm? Let me just say the wording for this was very interesting. How do we let players reforge them, recustomize them, or reconfigure them? It definitely screams like glass needles in some way, a resource that we had back inside of Destiny 1, but at the same time, knowing Tyson Green's background, I hope they go deeper. I've said it for a while now, exotics need to feel exotic. We need to have the ability to risk our current exotic for something potentially better. I want to stake my God Roll Starfire protocol for a chance of getting, instead of 2 fusion grenades, I get 3. Imagine a system where you insert your exotic in some sort of currency and you take that risk. You see that stat distribution, you know it's the God Roll. And you know that on the opposite side of this, you may get that God Roll. You may get that set of stompies that gives you another extra jump. But on the other side of the coin, this can go terribly wrong and you can lose your exotic. It's a common system. We've seen it inside of things like Path of Exile, and it makes the grind so exciting, but also super personalized because you just don't know what you're gonna get. Now, CB Gray asks, in the past, players aspired to certain power thresholds, 32 in Crota's Inn, 400 in Rise of Iron, and now because of the artifact, that number to chase doesn't really exist anymore. Will power be meaningful again in Edge of Fates? Now, Tyson recalls that the artifact power bonus was made to remove the cap on your gear so that you can keep going, even after reaching max armor power, which did blur that finish line. In Edge of Fate, there will be numbers you reach that will be hard number caps. The difficulty will be customizable, so it's now up to the player whether they want a combination of modifiers that may be impossible to complete, or something they can reasonably achieve. Bungie wants to make power as simple as possible. Bigger number is better. Harder activities give you rewards with more power, and your power numbers now all live on your gear. The hope is that new players can easily digest how power works and quickly migrate over into build crafting. Now, Milo asks, will permanent power increase over over 200 with Renegades. Robbie says not the plan for Renegades right now. CB asks, will there be any pinnacle levels of difficulty when tier 5 gear is required? It was stated that there is nothing that is designed to require tier 5 gear. However, there may be some customizable difficulty options that put players on a knife's edge when certain new gear is required. You can definitely see that with the amount of modifiers you can add to certain activities that are going to greatly increase the difficulty. Yes, I do believe tier 4, tier 5 gear with certain modifiers active will be required, or in the least, just make it easier. Now from Milo right here, per the developer live stream, the fabled rule tier was -40, which is massive. Contest, for example, is -25. Have there been any back-end changes to what -40 means? Now Robbie clarified that this is in part because the fabled rule tier is power enabled, so there's some amount of differential you can make up. But there have been some delta balance changes in Edge of Fates. The fabled rule tiers should feel like a tough nightfall. The mythic rule tier would be around a master difficulty. Also, the jump from legend to fable is not as big as a jump from fable to mythic. Now Milo asks, is it possible for explorer mode to come to raids? Robbie answered that this is possible, but it does take valuable resources to build explorer mode. Right now, the raid and dungeon team has to prioritize building new rad content. That being said though, there are opportunities in the Year of Prophecy to make other rad content more accessible in other ways. For those that are not familiar with what explorer mode is, it's something that Bungie has tried with Rise of the Nines. Essentially, think of it as like a dungeon or a raid, but with tooltips, showing you the mechanics of that content. It's a great way to onboard new players. The rewards aren't as good, but you could jump in, learn the mechanics with a group, and then after learning the mechanics and reading the tooltips, you could then go jump into the normal version of that raid or that dungeon. I think it's fantastic, and I really do think that Bungie should do this across the board for all dungeons and all raids. Now Milo asks, what is an epic raid? Robbie explains, looking back at Destiny 1, towards the end of Rise of Iron, they introduced the Age of Triumph. This was an event which added encounter challenges and tweaks to Destiny 1 raids, making them almost a 1.5 version. It's a permutation of the raid that forces players to coordinate in different ways. This affects encounters and story and will conceptually be a part 2 to the raid. There are no plans to currently apply this to legacy raid content, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility. For those that don't know, we are getting an epic raid in Ash and Iron. And yes, this is essentially what was explained to me as well. There will be mechanical changes, and I hope it goes to the extent of what we got in Pantheon. Facing off against one rogue is cool. Facing off against 2 rogues, and that's wild. Or some would say epic. Milo asks, what are feats? No, fellas, not those feats. Feats. Feats are a modifiable difficulty system similar to the modifiers being added in the portal. They will unlock after the contest completion, and these lets you modify the rules of a raid, such as revive tokens, add different restrictions such as time, and also activity challenges that are normally applied for master raids. Now this of course is all subject to change and tuning, but by adding feats, you can raise the difficulty and guarantee that you get higher tiers of loot from the raid. Players essentially will be able to do the equivalent of a master mode immediately when normal mode opens up. I gotta say guys, I love that. If you're like, look, I feel confident, my raid squad is good, and I want guaranteed drops, throw on these feats, which are essentially modifiers, and roll with it. Who knows, man? You're gonna see people doing the raid. Perhaps they're gonna be HUDless. And yes, that's a modifier. Now Milo asks, will feats allow you to make old raids more difficult? Robbie replies that feats only apply to new content coming, and they are very curated for each rad activity. Once older legacy raids enter the portal, that's when modifiers will be added. Yes, all ye, praise the portal. Now Milo asks, will legacy raids like Scourge of the Past make a return? Ooh, Robbie couldn't give a definitive answer on this, but they do want to continue adding legacy raid and dungeon content into the portal. He also said it could take different forms, and he brought up Pantheon and Rise of the Nine as examples. The great thing about these activities is the changed up formula, and there's more fun to be had there in the near future of the game. Let me just say this, Bungie, you are sitting on a gold mine. Pantheon with old raid encounters would absolutely pop. Of course, you have to rethink some of the mechanics, but I can only imagine getting an encounter of the original Leviathan raid, to then find myself in an encounter of Scourge, to then top it off with the final encounter from Crown. Fellas, even if you have not raided, I cannot express how amazing that would be for new and veteran players. Now Milo asks, will time gates around feature raids be going away? The short answer, no. Not because it's something that they strongly believe they must hold on to, but the reality is they need to focus the population on certain content. Now another question from Milo. Can we have more than 4 buffs on a screen even as a toggle? My God, right? Let me just say it is a lot better than what it used to be. Honestly, now that we have what we have, how the hell did we used to play play Destiny the way we used to play it. Robbie said that he's concerned that buffs all over the screen could negatively impact gameplay for anyone who is not a very high-end player. A few people may want to see everything, but if they could, the question is, would they even be able to parse all that information and make good gameplay decisions in real time? HUD customization would be awesome, and they have been working on HUD-related features over the last year or more, and that there are probably things they could do better, so keep sending feedback. Bungie, I will offer my one and only feedback on this topic. There's a game called Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. I'm sure most of you have played it. One of the best features that game has is the ability to customize your UI in whatever way you want to customize it. If you want to put your super bar at the top of your screen and blow it up, do it. If you want to minimize everything with almost a HUD-less look, by all means, go crazy. The beautiful thing about the ability to customize your HUD is that it gives everyone their own personal take on what it is they want to see on their screen. And to take this step even further, I love the ability to share my HUD loadout with other people. I doubt that Bungie has the ability to make the system work, but imagine yourself living in a world where, like a Destiny item manager link, you could take that dim link, but for your HUD, give it to someone else and plug it. And hot damn, they're rocking the same HUD you got yourself. People would literally be showing off the sexiest HUDs in the game. And I know some people are like, Cross, I don't care about HUDs. None of that stuff even matters. Again, check out Final Fantasy XIV. The HUDs in that game go crazy, and I love the amount of customization they give us. Now, moving on to a section here, and this one is actually about sunsetting. While discussing the chase to acquire new gear, CB Gray made an off-the-cuff question about the sunsetting of actual content, essentially asking Tyson to confirm that the core experiences that we know and love are not disappearing. Now, Tyson's response was that they're always trying to learn from the things that they've done and course correct. Quote, "We've learned from the infusion caps, the sunsetting, and content vaulting. We try not to do those things as we move forward. It's not a thing we do lightly. It's not a thing that we want to do. It's a thing that is hopefully in our past." I think one of the things that really stood out in this moment for me was that Tyson himself said that he was a part of even some of the bad decisions that were made. He's been through all of them, including sunsetting. It came off to me as like someone who was like, man, we made some mistakes. I've been through each one of those iterations, some good, some bad, and hopefully that will be a thing of their past. Now, I've seen some interpretations out there. Some people are saying, but Cross, he didn't flat out say, no, we're never getting content vaulting again, as he did mention that hopefully it's in our past. I see both sides of this argument. Again, for me, I just interpret this as like, hey, this is a game director who kind of has like some level of remorse, especially when he pointed out that like their goal, their intention at all times is to try to make the game fun and inviting, but then at times they definitely just got things wrong. Sunsetting was one of those things. At the same time, this doesn't excuse anything that's going to take place over the next year. And while I do appreciate the intention here from Tyson, I completely understand why some people are saying that content vaulting sounds like it's still on the table. And for me, I've always said it in the past, like, look, Bungie, I wish you would just even have like a day, whether it's a blog post or even just a Vinoc of some sort, going over the next big jump in the engine and tech side of Destiny. I would eat that stuff up. And look, I'm not trying to blame anybody, but part of me does wonder, does sunsetting and vaulting of content and restrictions that take place, does that have anything to do with the fact that this game is still playable on old gen consoles? I know I've got a PlayStation 4 player and an Xbox One player right now going, Cross, damn you to hell. But listen, you see game developers cutting ties with old gen consoles. You've seen it with things like First Descendant, which has a much smaller base than that of Destiny. The point I'm trying to make is that there's obviously limitations to working with old hardware. And if we do ever find ourselves in the future where Bungie has to make a decision between keeping whatever percentage of players is on old gen consoles or actually slingshotting Destiny into the future with whatever engine upgrades necessary to carry us through however many more years we have left of this game, that decision should be pretty obvious. I remember years ago when sunsetting was the big topic and it all came down to the tech side of things. It wasn't a conversation, and I'm just telling you my personal conversation with Bungie directly. It wasn't a conversation of getting people to chase more gear or any of that other stuff. It was primarily, ultimately, a conversation surrounding the tech side of Destiny and the data limitations present within the game. And if I remember correctly, it seemed to be more of an issue with the PlayStation side of things than the Xbox and of course PC side of things. But PlayStation, something to do with their data limitations and their caps. Not sure if that's even an issue today considering Sony literally owns Bungie, but this is exactly why I wish we can just get a peek behind the curtain here from Bungie themselves on what's happening from a technical stance within Destiny, Tiger Engine, all that jazz. Now, some rapid fire questions here. Milo asks, will we ever get a cinematic library? Robbie says this is something Bungie has looked into, but they need to further develop their streaming tech to make this possible. Cinematics take up a massive amount of space on the disc, so it's not feasible to store them all on a device. Now, are there any Destiny novels or other media in the works? Robbie cannot give a clear answer, but he's sure Allison and the narrative team would love to work with people who want to take a crack at the space. It's not off the table, but he can't confirm anything. Yo, somebody call Mylan. Now, how do you earn tier 5 drops from the Crucible? Robbie says that PvP gear progression is tied to both power progression and skill. You'll reach different rank tiers by increasing your power, and based on your PvP performance grade, you can get better loot. Now, that may sound a little confusing here, guys, but to clarify, as you climb power anywhere in the portal, you'll now qualify for tiers of loot to either drop randomly or consistently depending on your score. For example, a platinum reward rank in PvE, which requires you to be at 450 power level. If you then earn a performance grade of, say, A+ inside of a PvP match, you could potentially get a tier 5 reward drop. Now, competitive and trials also have higher score multipliers based on your competitive rank and trials passage. So in those playlists, you have a greater score potential, so you can get higher rewards more often. The main takeaway for this is that if you're a good PvP player, depending on your skill band, where you land, and of course hitting the competitive or trials playlists, you could get tier 5 loot. Matter of fact, the way it was explained to me was that you can essentially just grind PvP. It won't be fast, but it's an option. Now, some closing questions here. Milo asks, is there anything Robbie wishes the Destiny community understood better about Destiny's development so they can give more informed feedback? Robbie says over the last year, they've been very transparent with the community, almost uncomfortably so. The team announced a lot of their plans for the Year of Prophecy very early. They wanted to give players an idea where they were going and gather feedback before they made such a big leap. Complaints can then pop up of Bungie going dark, and that's simply because game development takes time and they don't want to try and provide answers that will not satisfy players' questions. Regardless of all that, they do want to keep sharing more often and be more crisp and organized when they are doing so. Now, Milo asks, what is the multi-year commitment to Destiny Bungie is making going forward? Robbie finished off with this. The Edge of Fate is about to kick off the next big story of Destiny. A lot of story threads are about to be planted on Kepler. When Destiny 1 first came out, people didn't know what type of game it even is or was, so planting that 10-year-long flag gave potential players a better idea of what Destiny was going to be. The reason the devs are calling this a multi-year saga is because Destiny is a live game and they want this to be a conversation with players. They have a plan and a roadmap of what they want to do. They also want to be flexible to react based on player feedback. They don't want to be in a situation where players want the story to explore something really cool and they don't have the ability to change course. In addition, at the beginning of this new saga, they don't want players to focus on the end date. Assuming the story will end in 2 years is a misunderstanding. At the beginning of the journey, it's just too early to set a hard arrival date at the final destination. I like that. Essentially, guys, really just depends on how well Destiny does. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to. As far as gathering feedback from players, that's good. But again, I still would love to see an in-game poll system. Let the players take part in a democratic way what they want in the game. Not for everything, but for some things. Maybe some players want a new subclass in that next expansion, or perhaps they want 2 destinations. Even if Bungie just put out random polls, like, hey, how would you feel if we left our solar system? Well, if the overwhelming player feedback from that poll was like, hey, 99% of players want to leave the solar system, well, Bungie, you better get to building. When I brought up in-game polls, a lot of people seem to think that that was going to take complete focus and that the devs themselves wouldn't be actually creating but reacting to whatever the needs and wants from players. Guys, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a combination of the two. Players react to what they're experiencing right now and give feedback on what they would love to see, but it's up to Bungie to create and shape that future. There was never a world in which post Halo 3 that I said to myself, I would love to see an ability that allows me to armor lock, become immune, and wreck any vehicle that tries to drive into me. There are some things that we as a community and we as just players, we couldn't even conceive. And that's the creative side of the developer. They have to cook these things. But at the same time, the community themselves could help shape the direction in which we would love to go. And I think in-game polls would be such a direct way for players to give that feedback. RuneScape has done it for years, and it has actually led to them having great success in maintaining their status as one of the top MMORPGs in the world. So that's it, guys. Those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this interview. Again, links to these gentlemen, both CB and Milo, will be down below. Also, big shout out to Assistant Game Director Robbie Stevens for taking these questions, as well as Game Director Tyson Green. I'm hopeful for what's being cooked up in Edge of Fate. I'm curious to see their vision alongside Allison's vision for the narrative. I do believe they're a solid team, and hopefully that's going to be reflected in the content to come. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.